Peace and welcome to the Big House Breakdown. This is our college football sports talk that we do every week. And I'm your host, Vic. You are strapped in this hour to all things NCAA football with a focus on the University of Michigan Wolverines. I'm your host, Vic, once again. I'm glad you could tap in. If you want to go live with us, we're on the bright side. You can catch us at WQPZZU96C5. So you can put that in your address bar above. Come on the stage with us, and we can have a college football breakdown discussion on NCAA football and the Michigan Wolverines. Unfortunately, my Michigan Wolverines this week are on the bye. That's right. That week to tidy things up, get things together, lock things in for the rest of the season. And um, today we're going to do some analysis of the team. We're going to talk about, we're going to give them some bye week grades because even though this is just like a quarter of the bye of the season, you want to kind of take a thermometer, a test, grade them, if you will, about their performance so far. We've had some big games, we've had some small games. So we have a sample size of 4, which is really good because now you will know whether we are playoff bound or portal bound. So we want to talk about that. But first, we got to talk about the larger world of college football. And I'll start off by sharing my screen and we can talk about how these jokers are ranked right now, right? So let's look at that real quick. Let's look at the rankings as they exist right now. We're going to get rid of that. So we have Ohio State at 1. We have Miami at 2. Let me open that up a little bit more so you guys can see that. Okay, maybe that's better. Okay, so you have Ohio State at 1, Miami at 2. Wow, how the Canes have risen. Penn State at 3, LSU at 4, Georgia at 5. Georgia will have a test this week. Oregon at 6, Oklahoma at 7. We got to see if that stays the same after John Matia's surgery. Florida State at 8, Texas A&M at 9, Texas at 10. Who would have thunk it that Texas would be on the board? Texas A&M would be higher on the board than Texas. Wow. Okay, so we got Indiana at 11. What a game they won in the previous week against, um, and then Texas Tech, Ole Miss, Iowa State. While Iowa State is hanging in there in the top 25, Tennessee, they should be higher. Georgia Tech, they're sneakily good at 16. Bama, they need to. They're 2-1. They need to rally the troops. Vanderbilt is hanging in there at 18, Michigan at 19 at 3-1, Missouri at 452. They're hanging in at 20. USC is at 21. Notre Dame at 22. Illinois at 23. TSU and BYU at 25. So there you have it. There are your top. Um, there are your top 25 um, within your recent college football rankings. So just because our Wolverines are not playing this week doesn't mean we can't go over those particular rankings. Um, you know, kind of give you an idea of what the landscape looks like. And now we're going to go into some of our top performers of last week. So I'm gonna share my screen again. Well, actually, I don't have to do that. I could just go. I could just go off the dome on this one. Um, let's do that real quick. Hmm. Okay, let me do another. Let me tap into this real quick. Bear with me, family. Yeah, just kind of putting it in and getting it in. All right. So as I get my files up, we got Mendoza, the quarterback for Indiana, 21 or 23 for 267 yards and 5 tutties. Demond Williams, quarterback for Washington, led Washington to a 46-24 win over Washington State. 386 yards, 5 touchdowns. Yeah, he did his thing. John Mateer, um, 300 yards, 2 touchdowns in Oklahoma's win over Auburn. That was a heater. Trinidad Chambliss, Ole Miss, filling in for the injured starter, threw for 307 yards and 2 scores, 112 rushing yards in the 55-10 win over Tulane. It's ill how Tulane was in the top 30 for a little bit. Dante Moore, 305 yards and 4 scores over um, in Oregon's victory over Oregon State. Yeah, that was one that Michigan let get away. He's a Michigan product. We got to keep our talent in Michigan, unfortunately, but he's doing his thing. I'm not mad at him. Um, Wayman Jordan rushed for 157 yards in USC's win over Michigan State. We'll have the pleasure of playing him. And then, of course, Justice Haynes that rushed for 150 yards, 1 touchdown, 9 yards of carry, and the 30-27 win of Michigan over Nebraska. Um, so there you have it. Those are some of your better performances of week 4. And of course, Michigan won that barn burner with the self-inflicted wounds, pouring salt in their own wounds, um, with the Hail Mary and the botched timeout by the coach and the the WWE taunting penalty and oh Lord, I don't know what we're doing. But if we can clean those things up, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Also, we have if college football playoffs were today. If the college football playoffs were today, we got Ohio State hosting with a bye. I'm sorry, Ohio State would have to bye. Miami would have to bye. Penn State would have a bye, and LSU would have a bye. Georgia would host. Oregon would host. Oklahoma would host. Florida State would host, and Texas A&M. So then you have Texas, Indiana, Texas Tech would round it out. First round projected games would be Texas Tech at Georgia, Indiana at Oregon, Texas at Oklahoma, and Texas A&M at Florida State. So, my Michigan Wolverines aren't in there right now, but they got some work to do. That pass rush looks wicked. That running game looks wicked with our three-headed dragon in the backfield. So we got some work to do to climb up from 18 into about, what is it? Where do we have to be rounding out to get into the field of the NCAA CFB playoffs? We got to be somewhere around between 12 and 6 because we already lost one. So that means that we won't be in contention to host or have a bye, but we can be. But we would have to win our division. If we win the Big Ten, then we can host, but we would have to win the Big Ten championship. But we would have to be somewhere between 6 and 12 to make the college football playoffs. So as we climb the rankings, we go because we climbing, baby. We're gonna be up in there. All right, man. So we moving on. We are moving on. We keeping it on though. Those who know. All right, so we got the biggest games of the college football schedule coming up, and for this week. Oh, let me do Heisman Watch. Okay, so so we got Heisman Watch on tap, right? And the field is narrowing. Performances are getting better and better. Um, Fernando Mendoza, 14 touchdowns, five in a single game. Not a household name, but he's seeking to be Indiana's first Heisman winner. He's good. He's got a good arm. Jeremiah Smith, wide receiver from Ohio State. Zero State is what they call him. Though he has some injury issues, you know, he's still, very, you know, vaulted player who can make some noise in the field of, getting the Heisman. That's not a quarterback. So we got to remember that too. Those vote getters usually don't matriculate into a lot of, you know, hardcore favor at the end of the year when they decide to give the Heisman, because the Heisman has traditionally been a quarterback's award. Uh, you have a couple of receivers, a couple of kick returners. You got some specialists who have won it. A couple of defensive players won it, but for the most part, it's a quarterback-driven award. But it's popular nonetheless. Dante Moore, highly touted quarterback out of Oregon. Carson Beck out of Miami. He's a dual threat cat, shows flashes of Heisman level talent. And of course, John Mateer, who's been playing the wild cowboy, throwing the ball all over the yard for Oklahoma. He recently had surgery on his hand, so we'll have to find out how he rebounds from that. If he can rebound from that and still be in contention for the Heisman. For a lot of people, when this sort of thing comes up, they don't really care about that. They just want the they just want their team to be in contention to be in the college football playoffs. And then they'll get their accolades when it's time to move on to Indiana for the draft, NFL draft, that is, right? So we're going to go to college football week 5, toughest games. I'm going to share my screen and we will get to it. Now, this is Drew Allar in the picture, or Drew Aller, whichever one you want to say, from Penn State. Rape State is what I like to call them. I didn't forget. But these are the top college football matchups for week 5. We got Georgia, Alabama at Georgia, Oregon at Penn State. That should be a slobber knocker. We got LSU at Ole Miss. That's going to be a real crazy SEC showdown. SC at Illinois. So even though Illinois lost to Indiana, they still have a really tough defense. And, SC is going to be one of the tougher teams that Michigan plays on their schedule. So I'd like to see how they stand up against a tough Illinois defense. I don't know if Illinois still has all their starters. I hope so after week 4 so that they can give SC all they can handle. And we'll see where that SC offense is versus a really good defense. And then again, you got TSU versus Arizona State. And then we'll see that I'm going to take TSU in that one. I'm going to take Illinois in this one. I like the way the defense lines up against SC. They'll play SC tough. Give me LSU versus Ole Miss. I don't like Penn State any way, shape, or form. I don't think their quarterback is the real deal. I think he's soft. I think he doesn't deliver when he needs to. I think he's the poster boy for not good enough. Give me Oregon and Dante Moore in it'll be competitive. It'll be competitive. I think Oregon is going to pull away. Georgia Bama is always a crazy one. My daughter's down there. I got to call her. I know the campus is going to be rocking, even though they might be away. Um, Give me Georgia in this one. Georgia is outperforming them. I like Georgia's track record this year. Bama could pull it out. They owe them one for last year, and that kind of the way that game went. So Alabama will be motivated, but give me Georgia in this one. Just too much running game for Bama. So give me Georgia in that one, and that would be your Week 5 greatest matchup. So if you're just tuning into the show, we did the college football top 25. We did the top players performance wise of Week 4 going into Week 5. We did what if the playoffs were today, where each team would be, and what we have to do to other teams have to do to get in contention. And also we did Heisman Watch, and then we also did Week 5's biggest matchup. So if you are looking to fill your palate this weekend with some college football, you can't go wrong with Georgia, Alabama. You can't go wrong with Rape State versus Oregon, Penn State. You can't go wrong with LSU, Ole Miss. That'll be a tough fought SEC game. They got some pretty good games. I even like SC Illinois. Those would be some really competitive games if you just want to, dull out on college football for the weekend. So that's where that is at the moment. Now we're going to focus on, unless anyone wants to jump up on the stage with me right now and talk about any of those 5 key areas in the macroverse of college football. You have the multiverse, the macroverse, the microverse. So that was the macro. That was the macro, the larger nation, and what's going on in the college football landscape. So that's where we are. We are moving on. So just like the post today, we are going to talk about several things, starting with grades for my Michigan Wolverines in the bye week. We have grades for my Michigan Wolverines in the bye week. Are they playoff bound or are they portal shopping? Because playoff bound means you're competitive enough in the field of 25 that I read to you earlier, the top 25, which I believe they are. They're right around 18, 17. They probably should be a little bit higher. That Oklahoma game and that loss to Oklahoma really set them back. So they have a lot to do to catch up, to make themselves relevant in the top 25 standing. They'll have USC and wins over USC and wins over coming up over Washington, and just staying at a one-loss team with some good performances from that really stellar defense should really have them right around uh, 12, 10 going into the Michigan State game. That's kind of where we want to be. But we want to talk about what's going on with the team at the bye week mark for the season, which is kind of like a reflection point in the season where we go back and we think about what the team was able to do in the first 4 weeks of the season and whether or not they are competitive, what they have to do to clean it all up and be more competitive, so on and so forth. So we're going to start with the quarterback position for the Michigan Wolverines, and we're going to give them a grade. Now, the only quarterback that we've seen this season in significant action, we saw a little bit of Jaden Davis, but it was just handing the ball off. Nothing. He didn't throw the ball at all, so he's not going to be a part of this conversation. But the freshman phenom, Bryce Underwood, certainly will be a part of this discussion. And if you want to discuss anything about Bryce Underwood, and the grade I'm going to give him and Chip Lindsey for the first 4 games at the bye mark, you could tap in StreamYard.com, WQPZZU96C5. You could tap in. We can chop it up about him. You don't have to be a Michigan fan. You could be a fan from another fan base who hates Michigan, who doesn't like Bryce Underwood, has something critical to say. you can tap right on in and we'll begin. So I'm going to give him a B. Um, I'm going to give him a solid B. I was thinking about a B minus, but I'm going to give him a solid B because there were 11 drops from Michigan wide receivers in the first 4 games. That's way too much. But let's talk about Bryce. So there was during the offseason, at the beginning of the season, in the preseason, there was a significant amount of talking bobbleheads and media and everything like that about how Bryce would be and whether he'd have the freshman jitters and how would he come in and spin the ball and would he be effective and um, all of that has been put to bed. My dude is really really good. Um, his clock is a little faster than some seniors and sophomores and juniors on the team right now. He's putting that ball in some special spots. He's showing why he was worth every penny spent on him from the big time Michigan donors. So if anybody's gonna boo-hoo about the NIL stuff, knock it off because you see the way that young man spins the ball. You see the way that young man runs with the football. You see the command he has for the team. You see even at the Oklahoma game when he didn't have it all together and he wasn't seeing the field exactly the way a young quarterback should because of maybe it was the moment, maybe it was the coverages that he was in with a really great going up against a really great defensive coordinator. He still was demanding excellence and being a leader, you know, on the team, demanding more of the team while demanding more of himself. And in the last 2 weeks to come versus Central Michigan and then against Nebraska, that man was running all over the place, and he just turned 18. He just went to his senior prom. That's nuts. It usually takes some quarterbacks 2 years to get into the type of rhythm and mode that he's in right now with the confidence and the. But that's why you put the penties down for that young man. You know what I mean? That's why that young man had no business going to LSU. He should have stayed. He's a product of Michigan. He's born and raised. He should have stayed in Michigan. He made a diary as a young man about going and being a Michigan starting quarterback, and that dream came true. So now he's there to do what he does. Now I love his. He has a great anticipatory set, so he knows how to put the ball in special places. And a lot of times, I don't think the receivers are even ready for how fast his clock is moving. And he's starting to slow down a little bit on the rollouts and have his body a lot more under control and not throwing off platform when he rolls out. I like that because that means he's going to be able to target his receivers a lot better. And you saw that versus Nebraska when he hit Donovan McCulley in double coverage, threw a bullet to him. And you're not going to be accurate that way. It was a high-low concept. Throws a bullet to Donovan McCulley, which is the number one receiver for Michigan. And Donovan McCulley catches it but can't stay in bounds. Actually, he did stay in bounds by maybe a centimeter or a milliliter off, but the ref ruled it out of bounds by a toe. Great catch, great throw. They should have let him rock out. I think plays like that, you got to let him rock out. Um, I think plays like that, you should let him rock out as a achievement sort of thing for the game because it can only enhance the game. Um, if they did everything within the rules of the play to make the play and made it, rock out, man. Rock out, young man. Rumble, young man, rumble. You know what I'm saying? So they did their thing. And I love that pass. And there were several passes dropped. And if those passes were caught, I think it was like 5 or 6 in that Nebraska game. And if those passes were caught, Bryce Underwood would have had a 70% QB rating, according to Pro Football Focus. So I'm going to give him a B. His receivers need to help him out. And I think he learned a lot about being shell shocked in his first college football start. He looks to me like a young man that's very determined not to make the same mistake twice. He wants to be worth all of the accolades and all of the media and all of the accomplishments and all of the, I guess, praise that he's getting. And I see him as a young man playing quarterback who has the athletic potential. You know who his athletic set reminds me of a little bit? Like a Randall Cunningham almost. His frame, his set, the way he moves, the way he gets around. I don't know if Vince Young is a good comparison. I like Randall Cunningham better. He has a bullet. He's got an arm. That arm is crazy. He makes it look easy with that arm. He could throw a moon ball. The only thing he's got to do is put a little bit more touch on it when he's doing the underneath routes. But if you're a wide receiver playing Division I football for the University of Michigan, you need to catch the football. So I'm going to give Bryce Underwood, mature beyond his years in the college football quarterback position. I'm going to give him a B for the first 4 games out of the bye. Now, running backs. So the running backs that we saw so far this year have been, we've seen a couple in that Western Michigan game, more than a couple. Your starting running backs are Justice Haynes and Jordan Marshall. Law and Order is their nickname based on the way that the word play of their name. But they're, one is a hard runner between the tackles with some speed, one cut wonder, and then the other one is more dynamic with a really great cutback ability, really great vision, and he can tear it up the sideline. Don't give him a crease, he's gone. And an interesting stat is that him and Bryce Underwood for week 4. I should have said this in the week 4 outstanding players, but when Justice Haynes had his 70-yard run and Bryce Underwood had his 40-yard run, Pro Football Focus clocked them in as the fastest players in college football that weekend on their runs. Like they clocked all the big long runs for that particular weekend in the highlights across college football, and uh, their speed, their RPMs were the fastest in college football. So that says a lot about the running back position, and that says a lot about the quarterback position. We have weapons there, my brother. We got weapons. So we gotta just, as a team, we gotta keep the O line has to keep opening holes for them, and I think they're very encouraged. I think the O line is very encouraged because they're like, "Yo, if I block for this cat real well, I block for this cat and I finish the play, he's gonna crack one. He's gonna break a 60-yard, a 70-yard, a 80-yard, and we're gonna be up, and I'm gonna be juiced up. I'm gonna be motivated. That dopamine's gonna be rushing. You know what I mean? That serotonin is gonna be going crazy, and that really motivates your O line to do great things for you. And it really helps that your center and your right guard, which are your, when you run power and you run counter, you depend on those two guys to really anchor those plays, which are Michigan staples and Jake Renera in the offensive line starting, and now you got Greg Crippen. They made some really great blocks against Nebraska. Say what you want to about how light Nebraska's line is, how not so tough they were. I'm going to say you play your competition and you don't play down to your competition. You play your competition. And if you have to bury them with 3 long runs in a game, rushing for over 280 yards, then that's what it is. So, and then of course, Jordan Marshall. Jordan Marshall was a high 5-star recruit coming out of Ohio, Mr. Ohio, when he was in high school. Came here, played in the bowl game against Alabama last year, tore it up, did his thing, and now he ripped that long, I believe it was a 60-yarder against Alabama. I was so happy for him because you can. We got a lot of comments. Okay. Okay, yeah, we got some trollers. All right, trollers, come through, and we can, you might leave with a nub. Don't troll my channel. Get up out of here. So, anyway, say something. Leave a comment if you don't agree with what I'm saying. Leave a comment. Ignite the algorithm for me. Leave a negative comment, leave a positive comment, leave a comment. Don't troll. Anyhow, so we're rocking out. We're doing our thing. We're talking about the running back room for Michigan at the bye week, and we're giving them a grade. I'm gonna give them an A minus. I'd like to see them be a little more effective in the passing game for Michigan, and I'd like to see Michigan use Jordan Marshall a little more effectively. But they have been the lifeblood of the offense. I'm gonna give them a. You know what? I changed my mind. I'm gonna give them an A. I'm gonna give them a solid A, not an A minus. I'm gonna give them a solid A. They've been a lifeblood of the team. Now that Bryce Underwood is, he's like a third running back for us, like we're in the wishbone or something. We're not, but it seems like that is because, our quarterback in the last 2 weeks has really picked it up and added to our running game. At 230 pounds, I think he can get that done. He's young. Why not let them young legs rumble? I think by the end of the season, our running back room can be an A plus. So our quarterback room is a B at the bye with room to grow. If Bryce can kind of not fall for the okey doke on some of those as he reads coverages downfield, because they're going to show him one thing and roll into something else as the play progresses. So if he can do that, I think Bryce can move on to an A, and I think our running back room can move on to an A plus. What I do like about them, the running back room, that is, they are not putting the ball on the ground, which is awesome. And I love the way they finish plays. So if you watch a couple of the plays that happened in the 8-minute drive that we had against Nebraska, you saw Justice Haynes finishing plays against those Nebraska safeties. You saw them, and the Nebraska linebackers were paying for having to tackle Jordan Marshall and Justice Haynes. They were paying for them. You saw them. I played Division I football, and I've been on the end of those games where, if you don't have the momentum in the game, and they have a running back that likes to bang, 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 those fingertips get sore, those forearms get sore. A lot of people don't want to tackle in the fourth quarter if they weren't successful early on in the game. And it looked like Nebraska did not want any part of tackling in the fourth quarter against that Michigan running game that is so traditional. So B, solid B for Bryce, threw a couple of interceptions. A, solid A for the Michigan run game, run room, running back room. I think they can get to an A plus if they find more innovative ways. Chip Lindsey finds innovative ways to get them involved in the passing game that aren't obvious, like the one in Oklahoma. You line them out in the flat, you go empty, and then as soon as Bryce turns his shoulders, if I'm a linebacker or a safety, there's nothing else I need to see. I'm going downhill. I see my key. I'm going downhill. I'm going to light them up. And that's what happened. And I think that's what led to their little melee on the sideline. And that really wasn't either of those young men's fault. Chip Lindsey shouldn't have made that so obvious. I don't think Chip Lindsey's going to go back to that play again this season. Now, receivers. Receivers get a C minus. Not that they were awful, but the drops have, really been a source of contention for the offense, especially a Chip Lindsey offense that features dynamic play out of the quarterback position. You need your receivers. It features a lot of motion. It features a lot of misdirection. And you need your receivers. In order to go north and south with the pass game, you first have to present the east and west option and get the linebackers biting on the east and west option with the motion. And then you get the dimes, and then you get the layered, the two-way goals on the sidelines. And then you can hit the dagger concepts and the post concepts. So if we're gonna move it in that direction, we need the receivers to catch the ball. Now, I'm a Samaj fan. I'm a Samaj Morgan fan. I think that little dude got heart to give people. But he can't take his eye off the ball on a drag route or a swing concept, or a screen concept because he's worried about running after the football. I think he does that a lot on punt return, and he shows he also does it in the screen game and in the wide receivers game while he trying to catch the ball, and it hurts him a lot. And Channing Goodwin is a pretty reliable receiver, man. I'm shocked that he put so many balls down in the last two games. So I know, according to Sharon Moore, who is back coaching the team again after his suspension, he said in his press conference that they'll be working on the fundamentals, lots of fundies, lots of fundies, lots of fundies, lots of fundamentals to be worked on so that they can get back to square one, the how to, not the run after, which I think a lot of the young men are worried about. And the offensive line is holding up in pass protection. I don't see uh, Bryce getting planted in the ground at a tremendous rate versus the teams we've played, even against Oklahoma. Bryce only had two. They only had a sack or so against Oklahoma. So I think we can, if the receivers catch the football at a better clip, they don't have to be perfect, but they got to be a lot better. They have to be at I would say, a 75% rate, 75 to 80% rate of catching the football. Right now, they're somewhere hovering around 50%, 55%. That's no good for having a freshman phenom like Bryce Underwood throwing the ball to you, who can be your Vince Young, who could be your Mike Vick, Lamar Jackson type. You have to you have to be able to present to the DBs that the passing game is going to be a threat. They can't line up and man up on you, and not respect the passing game downfield because you're dropping the football. So receivers get a C minus. I love Donovan McCulley. He deserves that number one jersey. He's made some really tough catches this year, a la the Oklahoma game where he caught it behind. It was almost like it wasn't a back shoulder throw, but the way that the play wound up, it looked like a back shoulder catch. And he did it like behind the back of the defensive player. And I was like, wow, he's trying to live up to that number one jersey, right? You don't get the number one unless you're nice, right? You got to be nice. You're going to don the number one, you got to be nice out there, right? So I like Samaj Morgan. I think he's athletic as hell. He's just got to concentrate more. I love Channing Goodwin. I think he is trying to be too perfect instead of just letting himself just get out there and play. I think there's room to put Andrew Marsh out there. I would split time with Andrew Marsh and Channing Goodwin. I think Marsh plays a little looser than Goodwin, and I think Marsh might be able to do something a little more special after the catch. He's our punt returner and our kick returner, so I think he should get an opportunity to be out there. And he's had his share of dropping the football as well. So I think the two of them should battle out a little bit, and I think you should even see some Kendrick Bell because he's a big body that can, and he's earned it. He's done some things over the last couple of games in spot duty that's shown that he's been consistent. Maybe you expand his package within the field of the game. So the wide receivers get a C. They're blocking their tails off. I'll tell you that on those long runs. So I love that. They need to keep that up. So also, let's go to the offensive line. So the offensive line has been a patchwork because of injuries. And we found a little chemistry between the right guard, Jake Granera, and the center, Greg Crippen. I don't think we need to disturb that. I think Andrew Sprague is consistent at the right tackle. I think Evan Link is really consistent at left tackle, even though he's kind of non-cerebral at times. He's going to play his tail off for you. So that's all I need to know. And I don't see anybody just you know, keying off. There was this one play with Nathan Afobe, not Nathan Afobe, the 15, the defensive end, the weak side linebacker from Nebraska, got Bryce on a sack because Link, Evan Link didn't block well. And I think you you may have those sorts of things happen once a game. Now, Afobe is a good guard. He has the size to play left guard. If Giovanni Ohadi is healthy, of course you got to play Gio. If Gio is healthy, he's your best chance at left guard. But if Gio isn't healthy, Afobe has made some strides, especially in zone run play, in some pass coverage spots. You've seen improvement. Him like Evan Link, if he starts all season, I think you by the time you get to bowl play and championship play, you'll see Nathan Afobe be a beast out there. But he's got to get the live reps. He's got to get those jitters, those nervous bugs out of them. I love what they did against Central Michigan. I love what the offensive line did against Nebraska. You got some, I guess, technical shoulder-based techniques to work on as an offensive line. I saw that during the game. Which shoulder do you attack in the run game? And I love the work that they did against versus when they were running zone plays. I think Michigan should continue that because you have a really good zone read back in Justice Haynes, and that will give the O line more confidence to do other kinds of things in the as the season progresses. And I like what the offensive line is doing with Max Bredesen. We'll get to the tight ends in a second. In short yardage, Max Bredesen is our H back, our fullback, for all intended purposes. And I love what the O line and Max Bredesen collectively are doing. I think Zach Marshall needs to get a little spin at H-back so that when Max Bredesen leaves at the end of the year, we're not starting from scratch with Zach Marshall. But love the chemistry that they're doing. They seem very determined to gel. I love the coach's focus on the offensive line. I'm going to give them B minus for the first 4 games. I was going to give them a solid B for the Nebraska game, but I don't like what they did against Oklahoma. I wasn't really, that impressed with them. And I thought they went down a little too easy in that game. They could have been a little more stout at the point of attack. It almost seemed like in that Nebraska game, the Oklahoma game, the spot was a little too big for our offensive line, which I don't think that's the case because Greg Crippen has been there before. Gio has been there before. Link has been there before. And they won that big game versus Alabama last year in the bowl game. So they shouldn't have felt like that spot was too big for them. But they didn't play that way. They played like the spot was too big for them. Didn't like that game. That's the only minus on their way to a solid B I would give them. So that's where I'm going with that. So, and then the tight ends, I'm going to give a minus 2. And the only reason I'm going to give them an A minus and not a solid A is because their unit has been injured over the course of the first 4 games. But I love what Zach Marshall's out there doing. Hogan Hansen was in there catching passes when he was able to participate. He's been hurt a little bit. Marlon Klein has hands like a wide receiver, speed like a wide receiver. Look forward to him doing bigger things as the year progresses. And I love what they did so far in the first 4 games. We need to do more in the realm of motioning them into some receiver sets and running them like we used to run Coast and Loveland. So they get a B minus on their grade. So our review again, quarterback is a solid A. Quarterback is a solid B. Running back is a solid A. Wide receivers is a C minus. That needs to improve dramatically. I think it will. I think they'll take some time in an off week to really clean that up and find out in a competitive way who's really ready to step up. Uh, Offensive line was a B minus, and tight ends were a solid. Oh, not a solid A, but an A minus, and that's pretty good. You got some really high grades in multiple areas of the offensive side of the team, which means your offense is moving in some really, really great ways. And it shows by what the running game is able to do over 3 games this season, over 4 games this season, but in great action. And let's not forget Oklahoma. Justice Haynes ripped off that long run in the Oklahoma game as well. So, he is the bell cow, the linchpin, the solid contributor of the offense this season. We got to keep him healthy, keep blocking for him so he can continue to do his thing. All that off-season training has paid off, my bro. Keep doing it. All right. So now we're going to go defense. Defensive line throughout 4 games, I'm going to give them an A minus. No, actually, I'm going to give them a B plus. I didn't like the outing they had in the very first game. I don't know if they were taking the game off. They could have played a little bit better. They could have had a better outing. But I like the way they picked it up. It seems like every game they're progressing more and more. And now that you have Jayshon Barham at defensive end, and then you're bringing people like TJ Guy off the bench and Dominique Nichols off the bench at defensive end, now you have a full complement of 4 defensive ends who are killing it, along with Demo, Derek Moore, number 8. That's the brother in the flyer that I had for the show, screaming when he had that um, big play against Central Michigan. But anyway, love what they're doing. Love the rotation of our defensive tackles. I think Rajon Benny that motor is finally getting going for the season. He showed out versus Nebraska, running through players, taking 2 and 3 players and putting them in Dylan Raiola's lap. He had a game, man. I mean, if he wants to get himself an invitation to the NFL draft, that game is going to be a big one for him. Both from a two technique standpoint, three tech standpoint, and from a strength standpoint, that he could take on double teams and still be highly effective. So love what they're doing now. It seems like the defensive line is finding their groove. I think they're going to show more of that versus Wisconsin coming up next week. And I think Jayshon Barham is a whole monster. He's our LT of it all, Derek Thomas, if you will, coming off that edge. Whether he's putting his hand in the dirt or he's standing up, whether he's moving around or coming from a linebacker position, he's that threat that the offense is going to have to put their eyes on. And that's just one more thing that's going to speed up the quarterback's clock and make him throw errant throws into a really improving linebacking core and secondary. So I'm going to give the D-line a B plus. I would have given them an A, but I think they had to take the first 2 games to find their stride, and then versus Central Michigan and Nebraska, they showed out. So I'm going to give them a B plus in the first 4 games. And then we go to linebackers. I'm going to give linebackers a solid A. They made Oklahoma, that wanted to be one-dimensional. They had no choice because our linebackers were really eating up that Oklahoma run game. Even in a game we lost, our linebackers were stout. So I see Barham, Cole Sullivan, Jimmy Roller, and Ernest Houseman, who was the starter at middle linebacker. They probably are going to be, by years, and they're probably going to be your best linebacker unit in the Big Ten, if not the country. And it's all because Cole Sullivan, who has a natural talent and a natural super quick first step, diagnosing plays and getting to the ball and making special plays. And when now that you can move Barham back and forth from linebacker to defensive end, that allows Cole Sullivan to play more. And then you have interceptions and tackles for a loss and all kinds of really, really cool stuff happening, all kind of beastly stuff happening from a Cole Sullivan. He's going to be dope. He's going to step right into that Ernest Hausman role as Ernest Hausman leaves this year to go to the pros. Really glad we have him there. And Troy Bowles is playing well too in spot work. So, our linebacker core, man, I'm gonna give them an A. They're doing their thing. They're doing their thing. I would like to see them be a little better in coverage. That's why I didn't give them an A plus. They're not horrible in coverage. They're good. I just want to see them be the best they can be. So when we go play them Zero State down south, we could put belt to ass with our linebackers, right? So there's that. So our D line is a B plus. Our linebackers are an A, and our secondary, okay. So like the wide receivers, our secondary is a source of contention on the team. Not that they've been horrible, not that they've been giving up a ton of big plays and a ton of touchdowns, but they've given up some long ones. Didn't like what they did against Oklahoma, although Metcalf had the interception, and we should have scored a touchdown on that, but did not. We need our corners to get back healthy. Zeke Berry, we need him to come back healthy. But that young man, Jaden Sanders, man, he got that glue experience. You know what I'm saying? He on you. He on that inside hip like that glue. Love what he's doing out there. And I also, Jair Hill is a skilled DB. And I really want to see him really concentrate less on the running game when we're in goal line and red zone defense. I want to see him concentrate more on his assignment, playing inside out in the goal line so that he doesn't get beat on those, fade routes and tight end crossers in the end zone. Because, against Nebraska, they scored a touchdown late. And if he was in a zone, I believe we were in a zone look like a bear look on a goal line. And if he would have just take the time to read his keys, he could have picked that off and take that to the house, like Will Johnson used to do. That Will Johnson would have picked that little flip out route. He would have took that to the house because they were in 22 personnel, and the little tight end did a little speed out. Oh man, Will Johnson would have took that to the house, no problem. And we need Jair Hill to be that. We needed him to take that step. And I think too many times he concentrates on being physical, more physical rather than his technique. And we have a good front seven, so he could rely on the front seven to be stout and at the point of attack. And he in the second half of the season, he can be more technique sound and start taking some more chances to flip the field for our offense as our offense improves. Love what I'm seeing from what's the other young man that came out of Bryce Underwood School? He played safety for us. Metcalf has to be a little more. Metcalf has to stop taking so many chances at safety and nickel. I love what Brandon Hillman is doing at safety. He's putting that wood on. He's our Mikey Sanders still, hard hitter, jackknife type of player. We could rely on him to help out in the box if we are doing some combination things with our front seven. We could rely on him to come down and really be a force fill in the run game and our run fits. So I really enjoy watching him play. He just can't make bonehead plays with penalties, getting overexcited. But then again, you don't want to tell the stallion not to giddy up. So you got to allow for some. You got to allow for some manic play out of the safety position with Brandon Hillman. He's just, you know, he has that peppers in him. You know what I mean? He's got that hard hitting, dynamic safety posture in him. I'd like to see Metcalf make some more plays out of the nickel position. I'd like to see Tevis Metcalf, if he's healthy, get on the field a little bit more. He's got that quick twitch that you need at the corner position. And I'm going to the depth chart on the roster so we can look at. Yeah, let's pull that up real quick. And can't believe I'm drawing a blank on what this young man's name is. I'll have him sooner rather than later. He made a pick against uh, um, Central Michigan, number 22 on defense. Uh, Jordan Young. Elijah Dotson. There you go, Elijah Dotson. He might have been on like a nickel look or a safety look. Either way, he played his tail off in the last two games, and no big plays on him either for a freshman. So those two freshmen are playing well. Now we got to get our 5-star corner that we paid a lot of NIL money um, to start getting in there, making some plays, and not let the moment be too big for Shamari Earls. He's got all the tools that you might need to be great. He's just got to get out there and play like it. Um, so the DBs have been solid. They haven't been a pariah. They haven't been as bad as the wide receivers, but they haven't been great either. I'm going to give them a B minus, not a solid B, but a B minus. And our young DBs are actually the saving grace for that group because their quick twitch and fast feet and youth athleticism has saved that secondary from being porous. So I'll give them a B minus. If the front seven continues to play well, I think that gives them an opportunity to work on tech and get that inside hip a little bit better, work within the Wink Martindale scheme. And I think that might be part of the reason why you're seeing the lack of at this moment. Wink demands a lot. He has an NFL scheme, and the group that pays the heaviest burden for his NFL scheme is the DBs because they have to disguise things, they have to move in and out of things, and they may be a tad out of position when the ball snaps, and then they have to play catch up. So I'm going to give them a B minus. Special teams, I'm going to give a C. They need to stop the drops, they need to stop the fumbles, and they need to do more to flip the field. The reason they get a C is the outstanding play from our kicking and punting game. So Zavada's doing this thing, and the punter is definitely a solid contributor to the special teams. So you can't throw out the baby with the bathwater, but I do want to see the return game, both on punt return and kick return, get a hell of a lot better. So we're trying to answer the question in the last particular moments of this show is whether or not we're playoff bound or portal bound. We have about 4 or 5 big opponents left on our schedule. Of course, Ohio State. We have Wisconsin next week. We have USC. And we have, let me look at the schedule really fast. Let me see, where's the schedule? Let me go back and open up the schedule for Michigan. Let's see. Yeah, so like I said, we have Wisconsin. Then we go out to USC. Washington will be a challenge because we have to get over the hump with them. if we're able to do that, I don't see us losing to Michigan State, Purdue, or Northwestern. So that means if we can get over the next 2 games, 3 games, Wisconsin, USC, Washington, then the rest of the schedule sets up pretty favorably for us until we get to Maryland and Ohio State. So, and Maryland is coming on. That young quarterback at Maryland is doing his thing. I like the way he spins. I like the way he spins. So, are we playoff bound or are we portal bound? I believe we're playoff bound. I don't. I don't see us taking another L on the schedule. It would be uncharacteristic. Wisconsin is probably the best of the batch. Not Wisconsin, USC. Sorry, USC is the best of the batch. We play Wisconsin next. If we're able to take care of business in those 2 games, one home, one away, and we have done the home away thing already, so that's not a stranger for us. We'll be road warriors this season. I think we can be playoff bound. I don't see us at the very least losing one more game. And of course, that might be the zero state game. The zero state game, I call, you know them as Ohio State. I call them zero state. Trying to be sucker free. But yeah, that's the only game that I see us having a super duper challenge. The penultimate game at Maryland always seems to creep up and give us, a bug in the ass before we play Ohio State. But that's always good because it's a good tune-up to make sure that we are firing on all cylinders to get ready for Ohio State. The only thing I want to say, no crap analysis, just getting after this, is I see a lot of the, talking bobbleheads in the larger football landscape media, Fox, CBS Sports, ESPN. Now everybody's singing Michigan's tune. We knew this from the beginning of the year. We knew this from preseason that Michigan was going to have a crazy defensive line. We knew we had a dude on defense by the name of Jayshon Baum. That was no joke. That was, that was no joke. Nothing to be played with. So that's nothing new. Why they didn't choose to focus on that? Crap analysis. You know what I mean? So now you'll get the Joel Klatts and the Josh Pates and the Pat McAfee's, bending the knee to what Michigan can actually accomplish on defense with our front seven and, our secondary getting better. I'll continue the crap analysis crusade as the season progresses. I think that's going to do it for us at the midway point of the season. More B's and A's than C's. Like I said last week, the secondary and the wide receiver core needs to improve. If they do, and I know they will, because they're a proud group of cats who are very talented. I see us in the playoffs. And with that, I'm going to sign off. This has been the Big House Breakdown. I'm going to say peace and go blue.